July 6th, 2024, 1:20 a.m. Sonya Massey, a 36-year-old mother of two, sits at her kitchen table in Springfield, Illinois. Her heart pounds. Footsteps have stirred outside. Something is moving around her yard. Terrified, she picks up the phone and dials 911, pleading for help. "There's someone lurking outside my house," she tells the dispatcher. Deputies Sean Grayson and Dawson Farley arrive on scene, and moments later, something unimaginable happens in her home. By dawn, Sonya Massey, an unarmed black woman who simply called the police for help, has been shot and killed by those sent to protect her. How could a 911 call end in tragedy? The answer in the search for justice begins now. Welcome to Cigar and A Crime, where the slow burn of a fine cigar meets the relentless pursuit of justice. I'm Dr. D, and thank you for coming to take a seat with me in the Lounge of Truth. Tonight, we shine a light on second-degree justice, the system that failed Sonya Massey. Sonya was a beloved daughter, friend, and mother whose faith and warmth lit up the room. But when she called for help on that July night of 2024, her life was cut tragically short. In this episode, we'll tell Sonya's full story from her life and family to the horrific events of July 6th, the criminal trial that followed, and a far-reaching impact her death has had on policing and reform. This isn't just a Sonya story. It's a story of a community in pain, a fight that's still being waged for accountability and change. Before we begin, remember, in this lounge, we let the facts rise above the smoke because we know, baby, the smoke never lied. Tonight's cigar of the day is the All Saints St. Francis. I chose this cigar in honor of Sonya's gentle spirit and her deep faith. Named for St. Francis of Assisi, known for compassion and humility, it's a warm, medium-bodied smoke with comforting notes, mirroring the kindness Sonya carried in her heart. Sonya was a proud member of the 2nd Timothy Baptist Church, and her faith was central to her life. As we light this cigar, we remember her warmth and the light she carried for those around her. Let's talk a little bit about Sonya Lene Wilburn Massey. She was born on February 12, 1988 in San Diego, California. She grew up and made her home in Springfield, Illinois, where her family knew her as the living daughter of Donna Massey and James Wilburn. By all accounts, Sonya was a devoted mother and a woman of deep faith. She worked locally. She had retired from J&J Gaming in Springfield, according to her obituary. And in her free time, she loved to style hair and spend every moment she could with her family. Friends and family say Sonya's greatest joy was her children. At 36, she had already given life to 2 kids, a son and a daughter, who were her world. She doted on them, cheering them on at school events and games. Neighbors and church members recall Sonya as gentle and caring. She was an active participant at the church, where she taught Sunday school and volunteered when she could. Her mother, Donna, told reporters that Sonya's faith was unwavering. Sonya herself once joked she was going to change the world. A promise her family believes she still honors through this day. The changes her death has inspired. Her tight-knit family included her father, James, her mother, Donna, and her 2 children. When Sonya's legacy became a statewide cause, her family was often at the forefront. At the law signing in 2025, all of them, James, Donna, and the children, stood united, holding each other close, determined that Sonya's voice would live on. Relatives remembered Sonya as caring and full of humor. Her cousin, Sonya Massey, said she always had a joke in hand and a son who adored her as his baby girl. Let's talk about that fateful night, the events leading to Sonya's death. In the pre-dawn hours of July 6, 2024, Sonya Massey was home alone. Earlier that week, friends had noticed she seemed anxious. She had been dealing with some mental health challenges. In the 48 hours prior to the shooting, she made multiple 911 calls, and her mother even phoned 911 for a psychiatric crisis response, warning dispatchers not to send a combative, prejudiced officer to her daughter's home. But on this night, it was a noise outside that truly alarmed her. Sonya believed someone was prowling around her house. She hesitated only briefly before grabbing her phone to call 911. Sangamon County deputies Sean Grayson and Dawson Farley answered her call for help. Arriving on the scene around 1:20 a.m., the deputies checked Sonya's yard and the street but found nothing. Reports and body cam footage show Grayson and Farley eventually went to the front door. Sonya opened it, invited them in. Inside the small home, the atmosphere was tense. Grayson brusquely demanded Sonya to show him some form of ID. Sonya, worried but cooperative, went to retrieve her ID from another room. Meanwhile, a pot of boiling hot water was quietly on the stove, filling the kitchen with the aroma of cooking. Grayson saw the pot and ordered her to move it aside to avoid an obvious hazard. Sonya, confused by this sudden escalation, picked up the boiling pot and began to walk it toward the sink. At this moment, something snapped. In 2 consecutive breaths, Sonya said, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." Witnesses and body cam video caught those words clearly. The deputies testified that to them it sounded erratic, a moment of fear or confusion under stress. Whatever the intent was, in response, Grayson exploded. According to the body cam, Grayson screamed obscenities and raised his voice. He drew his service pistol and barked orders. "Drop that fucking pot," was his words. The word fucking was clearly caught on video. Sonya, frightened beyond words, immediately started to apologize and slowly put the pot down. The woman was terrified. She said, "Okay, I'm sorry," and ducked behind the kitchen counter, as if trying to make herself as small as possible. For a few seconds, the three stood in that cramped kitchen. Sonya was crouched low, one hand over her face, and then, just as quickly, the worst happened. 3 shots rang out. Deputy Farley's body camera, which Grayson had not turned on yet, recorded this horror. Grayson emptied his pistol at Sonya, one bullet striking her just below her eye. Sonya cried out. The scene was surreal. Officers yelling, Sonya bleeding on the floor, and it ended as abruptly as it began. Paramedics rushed in moments later. Sonya, still conscious, was carried to a waiting ambulance and then to St. John's Hospital. But her wound was way too severe. The medical examiner later confirmed she died of a gunshot wound to the head. Sonya Massey, mother and daughter, was gone by 5 a.m. The deputy who killed her, Sean Grayson, was placed under arrest shortly afterwards. Within days, the county established that he had fired 3 times, all in the span of seconds. Even before the full details were known, the raw facts were painfully clear. Sonya had called 911 for help, and she was killed inside her home by a sheriff's deputy. The body cam footage released later in July 2024 showed this chaos as it unfolded. It confirmed that Sonya, though frightened and confused, was unarmed throughout, holding only an oven mitt at one point, while Grayson chased her with a gun drawn. The prosecutor's office, they ultimately charged Grayson with 3 counts of first-degree murder on July 17, 2024, like they should have. The community was in shock. How could answering a 911 call turn into such a fatal encounter? So let's talk about this trial. The legal proceedings moved steadily forward over that next year. Grayson was fired from the sheriff's office and booked into jail on murder charges. His attorney filed a motion for bond, which was eventually denied. The Illinois Supreme Court refused to let him post bail, keeping him behind bars through trial. On October 22, 2025, the trial began in Peoria County. They moved the trial 75 miles north due to this intense publicity in Springfield. Prosecutors portrayed the shooting as a brutal murder. During closing arguments, Assistant State Attorneys Mary Rogers bluntly told jurors, when you threaten to shoot someone in the face, and you do, that's first-degree murder. She argued Grayson's promise to kill and fulfillment of that promise left no doubt. Grayson's defense said it was a tragic mistake, not a crime. Can you believe that shit? They had the jury consider only the charged offenses plus the option of second-degree murder. And on October 29th, 2025, after more than 11 hours of deliberation over 2 days, the jury delivered its verdict. Grayson was found guilty of second-degree murder and not guilty of all 3 counts of first-degree murder. And I want you to put this in perspective because you need to know this and understand this. In Illinois, a second-degree verdict means the jury believed Grayson felt threatened, even if that belief was later judged unreasonable, and thus he had no premeditated intent to kill. After he told her he would shoot her in the face, the courtroom erupted in emotion. Grayson sat stone-faced as he was handcuffed. Sonya's family reacted in anger and heartbreak. Outside the court, Sonya's young son, Sante, barely old enough to understand it all, he cried and shouted, "I am fueled by rage right now," calling the verdict a miscarriage of justice. Sonya's father, James, he shook his head and he said, "Who could imagine in their wildest dreams that my daughter was the aggressor here?" Sentencing is set for January 29th, 2026. Prosecutors said Grayson faced up to 20 years. In the state of Illinois, the law says second-degree murder carries 4 to 20 years, or even probation in some cases. Legal experts noted that under the law, Grayson must serve at least half of whatever sentence he receives. Sonya's lawyers vowed to continue fighting. They praised prosecutors and vowed to press for reforms to protect people from unlawful use of force. From the moment the shooting became known, Sonya's case captured national attention. Journalists called it one of the most disturbing examples of police violence that year. Media reports highlighted the details. She called for help, and she was murdered in her own home. Even President Biden's White House faced questions, and federal authorities launched a civil rights investigation into the sheriff's department afterwards. Even President Biden's White House faced questions, and federal authorities launched a civil rights investigation into the sheriff's department afterwards. Following Sonya Massey's death, Illinois saw real reform take shape through the bipartisan Sonya Massey Act that was passed in August of 2025, which tightened police background checks and accountability standards. This was championed by Senator Turner and supported by leaders including Lieutenant Governor Stratton and Attorney Ben Crump. The bill was described as a first step in honoring Sonya's legacy. Her son, Sante, vowed to continue the fight, calling it a win in my book. The Massey Commission, a citizen-led board formed in 2024, has since produced key resolutions, creating a county mental health board, enabling citizens to recall sheriffs, reforming hiring and training, and requiring independent investigations of police shootings. Locally, Sangamon launched a co-responder program pairing deputies with counselors, expanding data transparency, and inspired broader national discussions on mental health and policing. Sonya's influence now reaches beyond policy. A Springfield bridge bears her name now, and her story fuels a growing movement demanding justice and systematic change. Her son's words still echo, "No more waiting." As this smoke from tonight's cigar, this All Saints St. Francis, lingers in the air, I can't help but think about Sonya Massey, a woman of faith, a mother, a believer in light, in love, and in the promise of protection. This cigar is smooth but bold, earthy, full-bodied, and honest, just like Sonya's spirit. But beneath that calm draw, there's a fire that refuses to die out. A fire that now burns through every courtroom, every city council meeting, and every reform that carries her name. Because in America, it seems like police know how to show restraint for everyone else but us. They can de-escalate for others. They can reason, they can wait, they can listen. But when it's black people, restraint fucking disappears. Fear takes over. And too often, our existence becomes a threat. Let me give you the truth hidden behind or beneath this smoke. According to the Mapping Police Violence of 2024, black people are almost 3 times more likely to be killed by police than white people. And in 98% of those cases, no officer faces charges. That's not a statistic. That's a system. And when the punishment for taking a black life is second-degree murder, that's not justice. That's compromise. That's the system saying our lives come with a discount. Sonya didn't die in confrontation. She died calling for help. She was failed by fear disguised as authority. And for that, no law or verdict will ever be enough. But here's where her power lives. Because out of her death came action. The Sonya Massey Act, the community fight for reform, her son's voice echoing. This is just the beginning. Sonya's name has become a movement, a light that keeps exposing what this country tries to hide. So tonight, as we put out the flame on this Saint Francis, remember this: every puff of smoke carries a story, and every story leaves a mark. The ashes may fall, but the fire, her fire, still burns. I want to thank you for joining me tonight in the Lounge of Truth. If this story touched you, don't just listen, take action. Follow Cigar and A Crime on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, drop a comment, and share Sonya's story. Because justice isn't a moment, it's a movement. And as long as we're here, you know the smoke never lies.